Welcome to the Kentucky Line. I'm Matt.
And I'm Clifton. And so coming to you after a 96-85 loss, Kentucky loses to Texas A&M, and just another one of these almost like deja vu games that you're just kind of beside yourself, wondering how in the world did they lose this game. And so, Matt, what's just some of your initial thoughts after what I know is just like a punch in the gut?
I try not to put blame on a loss on one thing or another. And I know that a lot of stuff happens in ball games, but
I know what's coming.
that this game was
Yeah.
lost, in my opinion, by Mark Pope.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not one to say that. I think usually it's kind of I don't really agree with those type of statements, but in this case, when you're up 12 points on the road and you put not only your worst offensive lineup in the game, but your worst defensive lineup in the game,
Correct.
and so you're up 12, you have to, you just have to make a substitution, but we can't leave Oway or Aberdeen in. We've got to take them both out.
Yep.
So now we're in big trouble as it is, and a 12-point lead goes to 1 point down in about 2 minutes of game time, it felt like.
Yep. Yep.
And to me, it's just inexcusable. We've listen. I know we've talked about this, all year long and question the mass substitutions question, but to me, this was inexcusable, and frankly, I don't get it, and I just it just really ticks me off. But anyway,
Well, I'm the same way. I mean, this is probably, there's been, I think, fair criticism of Pope all season, and that's not even taking into account the things off the court, which we'll get into here within the next couple of weeks. But, excuse me, tonight's the first one where you can just circle it and say, this was an all systems failure from the bench. And like you said, the substitution pattern is just a small part of it. And I was thinking about that on the way to work today. I'm an analytics guy. I believe in it, especially in football and in basketball too. But I think where Pope particularly, who may be more into analytics than anybody I've ever known, and what analytics don't account for in basketball, that's not really true in football because you have a reset after every play in football. Basketball, momentum is a real thing. And even though that lineup was only on the court for less than a minute with all four subs, in 31 seconds, they went from up 7 to down 1. And at that point, the momentum had completely changed, and it's something Kentucky never recovered from. And then even when they did call a timeout, they didn't make any real adjustments. So I'm with you. To me, the conversation starts and stops with Mark Pope.
yeah, I just don't think there's listen, you lose every bit of momentum that you had, which we had momentum. Listen, we
Mm-hmm.
were playing good. His first round of substitutions was how it should be. You put Jasper in. You've got Jasper in with Aberdeen. You know what I'm saying. You've got guys who can complement each other. Take somebody out. But when you take all your good players out, what do you expect to happen? I don't care what the analytics say. I don't care. All your analytics are doing is getting you beat. So I don't
Yes.
want to. I don't want to hear about it. And
Yeah.
and it's if this was just a one-off thing, we could be, we don't really understand what he did there, what's that about. But this has been a consistent thing,
Yep.
not only this year, but dating back to last year. How many times did this happen last year when he would make substitutions and kill the momentum we had that we would have in the first 5 minutes of the game, where a lot of times we had the lead, and then he makes substitutions, and then the lead's gone, and we're losing. It's a pattern, and it's not a good one. And I don't know why they can't see it, why he can't see it, because everybody else sees it. And
Yep.
and to me, it's just real simple. You can't take your best players off the floor and at any given time on the road against a team who, if they start shooting well, as we saw, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
they're a team that, they don't do that consistently, but at this point, I think it's happened enough to Kentucky this year that teams that don't shoot good suddenly start shooting good, that it's really not bad luck. It's something you're doing. And usually it starts with going under screens. You let them get hot a couple times, then before you know it, they're able to start hitting shots with hands in their face.
mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, here's my question, and I would love to hear this, you know, kind of asked and answered. You know, I understand that analytically, common sense wise, players are better when they're fresh, than they are after they've played 35 to 40 minutes. I understand that. I don't understand why you have to have these mass substitutions or even why your players need to come out of the game 5 minutes into the game or 10 minutes into the game. If there's that big of a drop off in the numbers, why doesn't it come in the second half when they're probably more tired? I mean, there's times they're pulling guys out and they've not broke a sweat yet.
Well, here's what I don't understand. Here's my answer to that. Number one, there it's ridiculous. They don't need a break. Number two, I've heard him say, players are at their max potential, max output at this particular player at 25 minutes. Okay, but what about the other 15 minutes? Is his 80% still going to be better than the guy behind him? Well, the answer
Yeah.
to that is yes.
Yes.
And so I don't really, none of that is relevant.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. He's going to put out his max potential at 23 and a half minutes of play. Well, that doesn't mean anything. And
No.
and I think about, I can tell you who one example that just came to mind was when Darius Acuff played, I think, all 50 minutes
Yep.
against
Of a
Alabama
double
a couple
overtime
weeks ago
game.
in double overtime. My guess is his maximum output might be 32 minutes, but is Calipari just going to put him on the bench? Well, no. You know why? Because he's the best player on the floor.
Yeah,
And
because at 80% of his maximum output, he's still better than 90% of the people in college basketball.
yeah, yeah, so that whole narrative and that whole line of thinking needs to be eradicated from his brain. Needs to
Well,
be gone.
and what I
And
don't understand, it's just for some of these high school kids, it's a year ago, and for at worst, it's 3 or 4 years ago. They're used to playing AAU, which is much faster pace. It's not like they're running a lot of, you know, sets where they're having to pass the ball 5 times. It's up and down the court, and they're playing 4 and 5 games a day.
yeah,
Every minute of those games, why suddenly can't they play? And I'm not saying 40 minutes, but why can't they consistently, if you're that much better than the guy on the bench, play 38 minutes, especially when it's in 4 minute segments? Every 4 minutes, you get a TV timeout.
yeah, and the thing about it is, it's not even the sitting them down for a couple of minutes, because listen, Oway and Aberdeen have been playing
Yeah,
35 to 37 minutes a game.
but not at
Okay,
the same time.
but you can't just put take them all out.
Yes.
You just can't, and because we've seen it over and over and over this year. You've got to have some kind of strategy if you're going to use some of your bench. Here's another thing that I didn't really get is Trent Noah played more last night than he's played in about 3 months.
Yep.
Now he finally hit a couple of shots and that's all fine, but I thought that was odd
Hmm.
personally. It's like
Yeah.
Noah's out here playing a ton, and and maybe he was just trying to get something going because once we lost the momentum and they took that lead, we just we just couldn't get anything back, and then we go into our own funk where we
Yeah.
can't make a shot. Always not hitting rim from 12 feet,
Yeah. I mean, a
and
27-3 run is ridiculous.
you have to try pretty hard to let somebody go on a 27-3 run on you. You
Yeah.
about have to walk off the floor.
Well, I mean, with 9 minutes to go in the half, you're up 12. And by halftime, you're down 12.
Yeah, I mean
I mean, it's just insane.
it was that was just another game that like a lot we've had this year that just leaves you frustrated, scratching your head, wondering
Yes.
what the heck's going on, um, and it just I don't know, man. This team is just bizarre. It's a bizarre. It's been bizarre this whole year, and a lot of like I said, I don't blame. I don't think it's all on Pope when it comes to some of these other things that have gone on this year. I think he takes his fair share of blame. Don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but I really think he absolutely just killed us when he just kind of stopped our momentum by doing that the other night,
Yeah.
and we couldn't, and then we couldn't get it back. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I mean,
uh,
what I don't understand why you don't just ride the team you have until they show they're exhausted, and then the team's cutting into the lead, and then make a switch. If you have to, a guy or two at a time. But to me, unless it's an emergency like foul trouble or an injury, and Trent Noah's having to play some minutes at the 4, there's no reason that him and Jasper Johnson, when one of them's playing 1 through 3 and the other one is 2, they should be on the court at the same time.
yeah,
You need to
yeah.
have 2 of Aberdeen, Oway, and Chandler on the court at all times. If you'd asked me this 2 months ago, I never would have dreamed I would have said Aberdeen is as important as Oway. But when he's on the court, he's turned himself into a guard that is just fantastic. Another game where he had 8 assists and 1 turnover. And,
Yeah.
and that was a game where Kentucky turned the ball over a lot, but he is kind of that settling force finally in the late part of this season where you can't take him out of the game.
Well,
Uh,
and
he-
you have to play Jas, and Jasper is much better when he's on the floor with Aberdeen.
yes, he's
It
more comfortable
it's
at the 2.
it's a much we actually can get into our offense, and Jasper seems to be much more comfortable. I mean, I thought he's a good passer. He did a
Hmm.
lot of good things yesterday, and but you have to have that other guard in there with him to take the pressure off of him, and not only for offense but for defense. And you know, and we let the wrong guy get hot.
Hmm.
You know, when we had all of our guys, all of our starters on the bench, we let the wrong guy get hot for them, the Spaniard, and he just went absolute off,
Yeah.
and and nobody seems to be able to
And the
do
Griffin
anything.
kid.
Yeah, yeah, he went on. I mean, it was just ridiculous, and but yeah, and then Garrison. Why is Garrison taking the ball out on the press? And is it me or did he just throw it to nobody about 3 times?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are you doing? He just chucks it. I mean,
If you just look at the stat line, almost, well,
oh,
outside,
and don't forget his wide open layup he missed again
yeah,
last night.
that was about, I was going to bring that up. That is one that I thought about you when it happened. I was like, I can just hear you screaming Garrison. Because I mean, it was just a bunny. No reason it shouldn't have been dunked. I mean, you're 7 foot tall and nobody between you and the rim. Why just try to finesse it in? I don't know. I thought Owe was great in the second half. I thought Aberdeen was good when he was in, and Diabate was great,
Yeah,
but it's just wasted because other guys just too many turnovers. That stat holds true. Kind of 11 becomes that magic number, and I think they're undefeated when they're at 11 or less, and they get to 13 in this game. And then on the other hand, they couldn't force turnovers. A&M ended up with 7, but a lot of those came late
real
when we
late.
were
Yeah,
kind of desperate. They had 2 to, I would say, within 6 minutes to go in the game. So it was just really a failure. And it was, like you said, it comes back to coaching because it was just, I don't know, I didn't see any adjustments. And it was, I don't know, they made a big deal. Jimmy Dykes did that. We came back on the court with like we just been back in the locker room like 5 minutes, and they were still shooting the t-shirt cannon and doing the halftime show, and we're out there shooting. I mean, that shows. I guess Pope just thought it was an effort deal, but to me, there were some serious issues that we had, and a lot of it's things we've had since the beginning of the year. We just don't guard the ball particularly well, give up too many easy shots, and it just reared its head again. And ultimately, at the end of the day, Matt, this team is seriously flawed and they're inconsistent.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's the understatement of the universe
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, just uh, this team, they giveth and they taketh away like no other team
yep.
maybe we've had in a long time, and um, it's just it's been incredibly frustrating to watch us play so well and then follow a great performance up with that.
Yeah,
And I honestly thought when we were up 12, I'm thinking, okay, let's let's not do anything stupid here.
yeah,
Let's just kind of let's just win this game. Let's
yeah.
not let them.
Put them away.
And we just and I realize when you're a 12-point lead with 8 minutes to go in the first half, tons of basketball to play. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Right.
and but we gave them the momentum that they needed. And then in the second half, even every time we made a semblance of a run, they would just go down and drill a three. I
Hmm.
mean, some of them not contested very well. Some of them contested real well. They listen. They were just it just wasn't going to happen. But um, but again, that goes back to your point of our perimeter defense. Some games, man, our effort and I mean, we really get after them, and then some games we're just late on closeouts. We're late on uh, uh, guarding the ball, and sometimes they're going to miss those shots, but
Hmm.
you still have to make the shot,
Yeah.
and they were making them, and we just could not get the momentum, and that's just boils down to another loss that honestly I think we're a better team than them on
Oh
on
yeah.
on
A and
on,
M's not
on
very good.
most nights, but we keep losing to teams that aren't that good, which means we're probably not that good,
No,
but
we're not.
um, we it's but we're capable of beating good teams,
Yeah.
and we've shown that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just been so uh, uh, infuriating to watch that
You,
you know.
we've seen teams at Kentucky, in our lifetime that you take a team like this A&M team or a Georgia or Auburn, whoever you want this last month that they've lost to. And we've had Kentucky teams that are talented enough that you could play a C plus game and still win this game probably 8-10. You know, this isn't one of those teams. This Kentucky team is a good team when they're playing well. We've not seen them play really great, maybe with the exception of the Vanderbilt game, start to finish. And this team has to play B plus to A to beat anybody in a power conference. In my opinion, you're not going to be able to give just half effort and beat anybody.
No, no, we don't. We just don't have the. We don't have the studs, I mean, listen, Aberdeen and Oway have really come along as two
Yes.
really good players. I mean, they are. They're good, and Colin Chandler,
Hmm.
has played really well a lot in a lot of games. They kind of shut him down the other night. Um, but you know, this team, though, we fail to. It seems like when we do get a lead, we we get lazy. We take bad shots. We get a 12-point lead, and what's the first thing that happens? We get a 12-point lead. Brandon Garrison open at the top of the key. You know why? Because they're going to let you shoot that all night long, and
Oh yeah.
he just pulls the trigger. He's got to shoot it, and we our patience and everything kind of dwindles, instead of trying to um, press a little bit more and try to get good shots. We sometimes settle for just really bad shots
Hmm.
especially when it seems like when we have any kind of lead. But yeah, that was a we lost that game um, with it from 8 minutes to the 8 minute mark to about the 5 minute mark in the first half. That game
Yep.
was over.
Without question. Well, and you mentioned Chandler there, and to me, his play is kind of indicative of Kentucky all season in the fact that he's inconsistent. Not that he's not a good player, and he's not. I feel like he consistently brings effort, but to me, he played 34 minutes, and even if they're focusing on you, you have to shoot the ball more than 5 times.
Yeah,
You have to be more aggressive. To me, he's not willing to step into the role that they need him to, and will definitely need him next year. It looks like to say, listen, I'm getting my shots and I'm not going to let you take me completely out of the game. I may have an off shooting night, but I'm not going to be out here for 35 minutes and just pretty much people be able to forget you were even on the court.
right. Yeah, I mean, 5 shots wasn't much, and he hit that first one, and I was thinking, okay, well, that's a good
Yep.
sign. And then he missed like three wide open ones,
Yep.
and then when Trent Noah missed two wide open ones in the first half, when we had that lead, I was thinking, oh man, well, that would have been not real nice if one of those could have gone
Yep.
in, and we just couldn't kind of put more pressure on them, and then when the uh, it started to go bad. It just went real bad.
All right. So, two more things quickly here before we close this out and talk about Florida just for a little bit. Um, that really kind of stand out to me. One's in the game, another after the game. Every bad loss, I feel like, for the last couple of months, to me, has had like just this embarrassing moment that's almost just symbolized the game and the season for Kentucky. But to me, Trent Noah finally gets out of a shooting slump and then krills his ankle on the head coach. I mean, it's just, you can't write that for being just
No,
a
you
more
can't make it
calamity than
up.
it was. And then the second thing, I was just beside myself when I heard Pope complain about the Saturday, Tuesday turnaround.
you know, the fact that he says that with a straight face is embarrassing. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, like, when do
It,
you want them to play?
um, well, Duke played Saturday, Monday,
Yeah, well, I mean, the
and
Big
they and
12
they went
does
out one
almost
and they
every
went out
week.
they went out and won by 30. So I
Yeah,
don't want to hear it.
no. I mean, that's just nonsense to me. I mean, I don't know. I was just,
It's honestly it's embarrassing, and the fact that he would even mention that to me that just tells me that maybe you should get your team in better shape, buddy. Like,
yeah. Well, and
I don't know.
I know they do have three players out injured. I understand that. But everybody that's playing now, I think Pope expected to play coming into the
Oh, he did
season. I mean, you started Trent Noah the first month of the
right.
season, and he's getting the least amount of minutes and has all year. Uh, so I just don't. I mean, there's not many teams that play 9 deep. Most teams at this point 7, 8.
Yeah, yeah,
And so to me, that was just ridiculous. To me, it almost says to me, and I'm, and I love him. I would give anything if it works out for him. But it's almost like a guy that has no answers. He's like, I don't know what's went wrong with this team outside the fact that we're not very good. It wasn't constructed well. Uh, but I have no other answers. So maybe it's just we've struggled and are tired on the Saturday, Tuesday turnaround, which to me is ridiculous.
and
I mean,
and
they're in
and I
college.
think the injuries do play up. I think the injuries do play a part in all this. I mean, just for a second, just think about this team. If we had Jalen Lowe healthy and Quayton's healthy, like healthy, playing, what's
Yeah.
dude? I mean, it's a big time. It's a big time difference and a big time different team. And
Well, I mean, I think honestly, Cam Williams may be a
and
bigger
and
difference
well,
maker
I
than
was going to
either one
say,
of those
and Cam
guys.
Williams healthy, especially once he's
To me, if you take Yelovich out and you're starting Cam Williams just with the lineup we have, not even low, this is a completely different team. And because honestly, I'm afraid if we had Quaintons, he'd still be trying to play Garrison 15 minutes a game.
yeah maybe, but I mean yeah probably, but I mean we got a glimpse of in his first game back, just a glimpse of what he's capable of against St. John's,
Yeah.
and so you know I'm just saying obviously we have to go with the team that we have now, but you know roster wise, that's what I'm saying. It's easy to say the whole roster construction now, but not one person was really saying that after we beat Purdue.
No. No.
You know what I'm saying? And so and
Yep, that's
so
true.
it's like, and that was without her, and so it kind of is what it is. But I do think, obviously, now looking back, there are some probably roster things that could be different. But if we had all three of those guys healthy, this team is 100% different. I mean,
Yeah, I would hope so.
it's a different ball. It's a different basketball team. But either way,
Yeah.
that doesn't change the fact that this whole excuse of Saturday to Tuesday business and him mass subbing, taking our best players out of the game, you know, that still is real and
Yeah,
and a
it's still a
problem.
problem.
So
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little about Florida. We don't have to spend much time on them. We've already seen them before just a couple weeks ago. Lost at Florida by 9, and what was a good game. I thought Kentucky played a solid game. And I thought, both teams played well, and I think Kentucky can play with them. 4 o'clock Saturday. I think ultimately it comes down to which Kentucky shows up. I think if the Kentucky that showed up against Vanderbilt does, I feel like Kentucky can win this game. If they don't, we could be like Arkansas was the other night, or any game Florida's played recently where they're beating teams by 30 or 40 points.
well, I think that we've played Florida better than any other team has in the last 6 weeks.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
so that's, to me, that is at least somewhat gives me a little bit more hope, and that that we can win this game. And honestly, I think this game is going to boil down to rebounding, obviously, because they're the best rebounding team in the country, um, and if not the best, top two, I think. But
Yeah, I would
but
think so.
we've got to rebound, because offensive rebounds killed us in the second half of that game.
Yes.
We did a good job in the first half. Second half killed us, but rebounding and turnovers, and obviously we have to shoot the ball well. If we don't shoot the ball well, then we're not going to win, because they're too
Yep.
good. But if we can have one of our nights where we don't have to shoot 65% from the 3 point line, but if we can make some shots, take care of the ball, and rebound. Listen, we can beat this team, but we have to come out and play with the same intensity that we did against Vandy.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Well, and I guess that gets us to, win or lose, there's a lot at play this weekend for Kentucky. It's still, as bad as they've played at times, a double bye is still on the table for
which is
Kentucky. They can finish, yeah, which is insane, but they can finish anywhere from a 4 seed to a 10 seed. And honestly, if you look at all the numbers, those are probably the two most likely
right.
scenarios. If you win, most likely you're going to be a 4 seed and get a
Hmm.
double bye, not play until Friday. You lose, most likely you're going to be
And
playing
you're going to get the 10 seed.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so essentially, if you beat Florida, which is a big ask, Vandy beats Tennessee, who I think A-Mint status is still a little up in the air, and Arkansas beats Missouri, you're the 4 seed,
Right.
which is insane to think. Uh, but there are scenarios, and it would take us all evening to go into all of them, but to finish anywhere from 4 to 10. But pretty much, if we win, we have a real shot at 4 seed. If it's chalk, we lose, and then all the teams that's supposed to win wins, we're probably the 10 seed, just because there's this huge glob in the middle.
And we lose
Um,
all the tiebreakers.
and
That's the thing. We lose
yeah, yep,
with A&M, Missouri, Georgia. We lose them all.
yep. So it just one of those things we won't know probably when we record Saturday night or Sunday afternoon. Uh, Whenever we get around to recording, we'll kind of know the bracket and be able to talk about it. But it really could be anywhere at this point. I'm looking forward to Saturday. It's getting into one of my favorite times of the year. But honestly, Matt, what I'm most anxious about right now has nothing to do with the basketball team, has nothing to do with the tournament, but it's something we need to at least touch on. And I think we'll have more time to talk about it after the season because I don't think a hire will be made soon. But this athletic director hire is major for Kentucky for basketball, football, everything moving forward. This is one in the era we're in, you can't afford to miss with your athletic director.
Absolutely not. And I agree. We have got to make the right choice here, and it needs to be somebody that's that's on the up and up, and is wanting to, willing to uh, roll with the all the changes that's going on in college sports, and to
Yeah.
adapt to them and use them to our benefit rather than try to fight against them.
Yeah, Barnhart no doubt has been a great athletic director for 20 plus years, but for the last, really from transfer portal era to now with the NIL era, which is as big a shift as we've seen in probably, uh, you know, 50 years in college sports. I feel like Pope, or not, excuse me, not Pope, but Barnhart is almost handicapped Kentucky in the fact that he's making them play by rules that is what he wants the sport to be rather than what it is. And so, to me, we have to get somebody that's going to push the boundaries. Uh, I'm terrified, just me personally. And I'm sure she's brilliant, but the Rachel Baker, who is like an assistant to him, but is also married to a high executive at JMI. We're going to talk some about JMI after this tournament. To me, there are a lot of the problems that Kentucky's facing right now, all the
Uh
way
huh.
around. And so we need somebody that's kind of not controlled by them. That said, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna run this athletic department. You're a media rights person, but you're not the dictator over this school and this athletic department. And they need to get some power back because ultimately we're not just there to, you know, have them give us money to put our games on the radio. We're there to win games. And so this is a big hire, and so one we'll talk a lot more about. But also, let's as we close, 13th region tournament's underway. It's kind of been chalk except for Whitley beating Pineville. They're a lower seed, but I think most people probably expected
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. For sure.
I think the surprise so far is North won, but wasn't pretty tonight. So they're going to have to play better ball on that to even, I think, to get past whoever wins this game that's on right now between Corbin and Knox. It was close last time I seen it. I couldn't find a score right then. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this, finishes out, and we'll probably be able to talk about the girls champion this weekend and preview the championship game next time you hear
Yeah.
from us. So, any thoughts on the tournament up to now,
Uh,
Matt, or anything before
no,
we
just
close?
I think yeah, the tournament has gone pretty much how we thought. I think everybody had Whitley beating Pineville. That that I
Yep.
didn't think that was going to be close, and it wasn't. And but like you said, North Harlan game closer than we thought, and I think it's going to end up when it comes down to it, going to probably be North and Bell unless there's a big upset, and that should be
Yep.
a good one. So yeah, just looking forward to the weekend, hoping the Cats can pull it off.
Yep. Me too. Well, we'll talk to everybody this weekend, and like I said, hopefully the Cats are looking at a double bye next time we talk to you. But you never know; we could be talking about a quick turnaround. I mean, hopefully Pope can get them enough energy to
Well,
play on
hey, and
Wednesday. I
also,
know one more day probably won't help
well,
much,
and
but
keep this in mind for all you people who um, may want to go to the SEC tournament if you've never gone. Wednesday is general admission, which means
yeah,
you can sit wherever you want, and I think the tickets are like they're cheap, whatever they are. I can't remember
yeah,
what they are, but so if there is any silver lining to us having to play on Wednesday, if anybody wants to go and watch the Cats and get them a good seat,
yeah,
that's an option. I hope that isn't the option. So
yeah.
I'll just go ahead and say that. But anyway,
But
yeah,
it's
that is
possible.
possible.
Well, and as you said that, the women, they've started their SEC tournament yesterday. Actually, kicked the tournament off, which is a spot the men could be in. But I think the women probably have a higher ceiling than the men. They've played two good games tomorrow at noon. They're playing South Carolina, a team that they had a shot to go to overtime with just a couple days ago. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do to finish their run here in the conference tournament. And just speaking of that, did you see the women's? I guess the SoCon tournament last night with the brawl
I
that broke
didn't.
out.
No.
You're gonna have to look this up as we close here. 7 players suspended, I believe, for South Alabama
Wow.
kicked out, and one from the other team. Well, it ends up they're fighting a big swing, and a referee gets knocked out
Oh,
cold.
geez.
So it's yeah, so it's maddening, but it's March Madness, and I guess that referee's feeling it. So we'll talk to everybody next
All
time,
right.
and
Go
go
Cats.
Cats.